Around half of US ocean shipping operations have halted. Port workers are demanding increased wages as importers warn the dispute will increase prices for consumers. Fox Business reports from the Port of Baltimore.
From Texas to Maryland and New Jersey to Maine, a massive and potentially costly strike is on, as 45,000 workers at 3 dozen East and Gulf Coast ports walk off the job. The International Longshoremen's Association is demanding higher pay and less reliance on automated machinery. The union's fiery president fully aware of the havoc the walkout is causing.
People never gave a about us until now. Cars won't come in, food won't come in, clothing won't come in. You know how many people depend on our jobs? Half the world. Elon Musk and other critics are pointing out Daggett's union salary is more than $700,000 a year, according to a Department of Labor filing from 2023. The two sides don't appear to be at the bargaining table today. Industry groups for retailers, manufacturers, and wholesalers are calling on the Biden-Harris administration to reverse course and invoke the Taft-Hartley Act, forcing workers back to their jobs while negotiations take place.
As we're getting this close to the election, it sounds like they don't want to make their friends in big labor unhappy. But in the meantime, the rest of America is going to be unhappy.
Former Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, a Republican who has the local union's endorsement in his Senate race, standing with picketing workers Tuesday, refusing to criticize the administration.
I don't think it should be a Republican-Democrat thing. I think we should all be just trying to see if we can't get these things resolved, because it's going to be important to the economy.
Should they invoke the Taft-Hartley Act?
I'm not sure at this point if that's necessary or not.
By some estimates, there's up to $5 billion at stake for the U.S. economy each day this strike lasts. In the meantime, businesses are scrambling to find other ways to move their products into and out of the United States.
So what does this strike action potentially mean for Australia? Well, joining me now is Tom Jensen, Head of International Freight and Logistics at the Freight and Trade Alliance. Tom, thanks for your time. I mean, what are some of the implications here for Australia? Are goods from the US just going to stop showing up?
Yeah, so essentially right now it will have a flow-on effect essentially. So basically there's about anywhere between 5 to 15% of imports and exports come from the US. They are Australia's second largest trading partner, so basically that's quite a big impact. Essentially, I mean, we knew about this impending strike for quite a while now, so a lot of people have actually worked around that to beat this impending strike, but essentially it will have on-flowing effects in terms of port congestion and additional charges to freight in particular.
Yeah, you mentioned this strike we've known it's coming for quite a while. So when you look ahead to like the Christmas selling season, for example, for retailers, would most of that stock that they're planning to sell, has that already been imported into Australia by this point?
Yeah, most definitely. So it would have been too late for the Christmas rush, but essentially after that, it's definitely going to have some effects there for sure.
Now, global shipping costs, they've been falling since July. I think they're down to less than $4,000 per 40-foot container right now. But if this strike goes for a while, what could it mean for the price of shipping containers around the world?
Yeah, like you say, it's come down about 38% in the last 10 weeks. So right now, the estimates are that the increases will be up around the 20 to 50% mark on freight costs again. So similar to what we saw with the Red Sea, that increased over 200%. And again, when the port congestion issues hit Singapore in early May, that had significant increases as well. So no doubt there will be some increases. Shipping lines have also already implemented some disruption surcharges essentially to cover their costs. So immediately importers and exporters are already hit with those fees, and a lot of the other lines have already jumped on board as well. However, the US FMC, the Federal Maritime Commission, as part of the Biden administration, they've been trying to police the issue and try to keep the shipping lines a bit more honest.
Yeah, so as shipping costs go up and, port operators put up their prices, what does that mean for Australian consumers and for inflation and, buying imported goods?
Yeah, with inflation, there was an estimate done around the Red Sea crisis, which this will have a similar impact, but essentially core goods inflation was going to be more than double what the core overall inflation was going to be. So it definitely will have flow-on effects for the consumers in Australia.
And we just heard in that package there from Fox Business, the US government's not going to intervene in this. Obviously, the election is coming up. I mean, how long feasibly could this strike actually continue for?
Yeah, it's indefinite. The unions themselves came out with a statement just the other day suggesting that they're hoping to have a bumper agreement for their members, and they're hoping to wrap this up in about 2 to 3 weeks. As a bit of a comparison, we had the DP World strikes here in October through to February, and the government didn't step in to even discuss it with the parties until 3.5 months in. So essentially the Biden administration at least have got the parties on notice, and they are siding with the union at this point in time, and they have tasked the US Maritime Alliance to sharpen their pencil.
Yeah, you mentioned a bit of industrial action here. We've obviously had DP World, Patrick Terminals in the last few years, Svitzer tugboats as well.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the outlook for industrial action like for Australia at the moment?
Yeah, next year's going to be a big one. So we got Victoria International Container Terminal, otherwise known as VICT, in Melbourne. They should have started negotiations this month. Their expiry of their agreement happens in March next year, so we could see some action there from April. Then you've also got the likes of Hutchison and also Patrick's coming back to the table again late next year. So out of the major terminals in Australia, we could see 3 of the major terminals having action at any one time in the latter quarter of next year. So it's quite substantial a possibility, but the only saving grace in Australia is we have a fair bit more automation than what the US ports do. So the likes of Patrick's and VICT are heavily automated already at their terminals, which would mean less impact in wages.
Tom Jensen, Head of International Freight and Logistics at the Freight and Trade Alliance. Thanks for coming on the program this afternoon.
Thank you.